welcome to the Week 1 edition of the Coach's Corner here on Leominster TV. I'm Todd Robbins, joined as always by Leominster High School head coach Dave Palazzi as we welcome you to the 2018 season, the 7th season of the Coach's Corner here on Leominster TV, and the first official time we can welcome you to the 20th season of televised football here on Leominster TV as well. Coach, the season is upon us once again, and of course it starts every year, probably long before we even get to this juncture, not probably, definitively before we get here. It starts in the off season, before the school year even ended. How did the off season go? Get everybody organized, obviously, and get ready to come into the year.
Yeah, we were pretty excited. I mean, this is probably the biggest year we've had in the off season as far as our lifting program. Jose Navarro, Mark Curley did a wonderful job in just getting guys there. Our freshman coaches were involved as well. So, you know, I really saw a lot of kids build a lot of camaraderie. We had, you know, up to 40, 50 kids at times. So that's a good sign. I mean, going 3-8 last year, I think we need to work a little harder, and I think that resonated with the team in the off season. I think they really put the work in.
And training camp, of course, comes immediately after that, and it comes early, you know, before the kids get into school. You get into the kind of the function and the form. And I know the MIAA put some changes into how that time period goes. How did that affect the beginning of the training camp process?
To be honest, I mean, I've always kind of done it the way they've set it out. I mean, I haven't I've always felt the helmet and shoulder pads should go on the first day because you're running, but they've changed that where it's just conditioning. So I get that. So, you know, I think it's a good thing. I think the kids get acclimated to what it's going to be about. And you can really condition for 3 days and give kids a little bit of an idea of what it takes to, you know, to play football. I mean, we're not trying to kill kids, obviously, but we are giving them a little taste of what it's going to be like. And by the way, they're going to have full equipment on when they're doing all of the conditioning that we did in those 3 days. And then, of course, the 2 days with helmet and shoulder pads and then full equipment. So, you know, it's changed a little bit in that respect. I think is a good thing. But we followed those rules and we really, you know, worked our kids hard. But I think they were in tremendous shape. This is probably the best shape we've been in here, since I've coached here in preseason.
That's always a good thing when you're coming into the year because once you start, there's really no fixing that conditional issue. You either have it at the beginning or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just show up for football and want to play football and then, you know, you don't do anything and you're at home playing Fortnite or whatever it is for 10 hours a day.
Detox has begun.
Yeah, it's really not gonna work in your favor. I mean, I always say football's easier to quit than it is to play because it's a tough game and you know, you really have to be dedicated and you have to be disciplined, and it is hard work and it can be violent, and you know, there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide when you're on the football field or in practice. So, you know, I think we've done a good job in preseason and preparing ourselves, and you know, I like what I see so far as the determination and the will and the teamwork.
When you look at the landscape of what is now Blue Devil football and probably Leominster Athletics in your new job as athletic director, one of the things we're seeing in some cases is obviously a curtail of participation. Numbers in organized sports just generally are going down, or students are choosing to specialize. So that means numbers in one sport may be going up at the expense of a 3-sport athlete you might have had in past generations. How have you seen participation numbers here in 2018 across the board? Are you seeing numbers around the same, from what I can tell from the football program, around the same number, plus or minus a couple?
Yeah, I think I think everybody's down in football a little bit, 14%, maybe some teams 20, but I think we've been hit a little bit by that. But we're pretty strong, up to 100 kids in our program, freshman through senior, maybe 110. But I think our other programs have been really, really good, and in our volleyball program, cross country, field hockey, boys and girls soccer, I think we have a lot of participation. Cheerleading, I know Tracy has a tremendous program. She always has a million girls trying out. So, I think we're pretty good there. I know, Darryl Robichaud with golf would like Tiger Woods to show up at some point. But, I think overall the participation this year at Leominster, I would say, I don't have the numbers, but I think it's been up. But I know football has been going down across the state. I know those numbers are out, and obviously with the concussion, parents get worried, and that's just about in anything that can happen. But I do understand it. But the lessons you learn in football and the things, the life lessons you learn, I think, supersede sometimes the worry of whether or not a kid's going to get a head injury. I know it can happen in any sport, but it's a family decision. So we'll see how the numbers continue to stay the same, increase, decrease over the years.
The numbers that did show up, obviously, the week and a half or so ago to get things started, have encountered a number of things that'll galvanize a team. Wet weather, probably an unprecedented wet start to the year. Then miserable heat to follow that. Today finally felt like a little bit of football season, a little bit of maybe a moderating temperature a little bit. Nothing better than to galvanize a group than varieties of weather and experiences that you'll feel on the field throughout the season.
Yeah, and I mean, as athletic director, I commend Lorene because from last year, you can't line a wet field.
That's
so we had to get all our fields lined and had to keep putting that off. But we did make that happen. The wet weather, we had to go to restrictive practices and make sure there's a lot of water and things like that. But, no, you're right. I mean, you got to be ready for anything, and wet weather or heat conditions and things like that. And, we're in tune with those things, and we have some pretty smart coaches. But it's been kind of a funky preseason for everybody with the weather and the heat. And I thought today it's August 31st. I mean, this is football weather today. You walk outside, and that's all I could smell, hear, and taste. And I was all fired up at about 6 this morning because of the cool air. But that's really the way we would rather have it, I guess.
And hopefully it continues in that moderate pattern throughout the year as well. As you turn kind of into that process, and now you've been through this a number of times, not certainly your first go around into your 8th season here at Leominster and a number before that elsewhere, in the training camp process. What has stood out to you this year as far as, comparatively to other years maybe you've had it, what stood out to you as you began the training camp process?
It's not much different than last year. I think there's a little more cohesion with the entire unit this year. I think the senior class has really embraced the juniors and the sophomores, and I also think that this is enormous because they worked out in the summer as much as they did as a team. They came to camp, and it was an easy transition. They know each other better. They have a little bit more respect for one another. There's less introductions. They know what everybody's about. We're in a day and age, Todd, particularly in football and some sports, where parents want to do what's best for their kids, so they sign them up to specialize in lifting, and we have a lot of those trainers in our city, which I love and support. I think they do a great job. I mean, we're just asking our kids to work out together 2 to 3 times a week and then go with the trainers the other time. So we've been doing that for years. It has not worked out in the past, but this is the first year I think I can say it's worked out, where we've had more kids work out together as a team than in the past, and I think that has made a huge difference. I think the kids realize it. I think they notice it on the field, and I think that's going to transcend into more wins than we had last year. I believe that.
I can certainly speak to that, and we were out with them today doing some recording for things you'll see coming up on some of the broadcasts throughout the season. You could feel that camaraderie. They had a nice give and take with one another already at this point in the season, not even in week 1, tail end of week 0, if you will. So when I see that at that point in time, and I know it's something from a coaching standpoint you want so badly, and maybe you can't coach family. They either know it or they don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it all begins with trust. I mean, you have to trust yourself, you have to trust your coaches, and you have to trust your teammates. And, I think they've gained the trust of one another, and at least making an effort to try to work out and be part of a team. And I think, like I've always said this, the harder you work, the harder it is to take away. So I think during practices, rather than the coaches yelling at a lot of these guys to pick it up and, pay attention, I think a lot of the senior class has taken that over, and I think that's senior leadership, and I think that's important.
On the field, from a skill standpoint, obviously you've observed a number of things. You're working on teaching some skills. You're working on skill building in other places. What have you learned about your team thus far from a skill standpoint on the football field between the lines?
I think we have a lot of guys back from last year. I think they know what we're doing. We're doing, necessarily fine-tuning things more so than putting things in for the first time. I mean, we are running some different things, but I think, it's not a lot of new faces out there. I mean, we have a lot of returning starters on both sides of the ball. The guys that we do have in there that are new, we really have to rep things out, and I think you have to be, great at some things rather than good at everything, because that's, particularly with our first opponent. I mean, last year, they were great at the various things that they did, and we were good at a lot of things, and we didn't fare too well. So I think our focus is just trying to be great at a few of the things we're going to do, particularly with a new quarterback, sophomore quarterback. So rather than try to run a million plays and formations and throw that at everybody.
Let's talk about that new quarterback, because whether it's fair or not, everybody in my position from a media standpoint in any level, probably from Pop Warner all the way to the professional leagues, who do they want to know about? Who do they ask about? It's quarterback. And quarterback in Leominster is probably just as big a deal, and if not, in Fitchburg as it is at Alabama. They want to know who's the quarterback of this program. Pat Gallagher, obviously, in the offseason, there was an announcement that he had gotten an offer to play baseball. And, of course, there was conversation about whether he would play football. It is clear now he is not going to play football this year, which brings about the opportunity for a new sophomore quarterback to take over that role.
Yeah, and congratulations to Pat. I think that's great. And in today's day and age, I mean, he's going to be a pitcher, so, school's not $12,000 to go anymore. It's,
that's right.
50, 60,000. So he'll be attending University of Connecticut to pitch. So with that said, we have J.C. Cora, who's a sophomore. He started last year on defense and on offense as a freshman, which is pretty good. I think he worked out this summer. I think he was in the top 3 or 5 guys that were, working out and just working hard and being a leader. He's already a leader on the field. He wants to play. But obviously, the will and the heart comes first, and then when you get to the X's and O's and the defenses in this league, it can be very challenging, obviously. So I think he's going to be good. I think it's going to take some time. I think I'm going to try to put him in as many spots as I can for him and us to be successful, and not hopefully don't have to put him in positions early on where he's got to bail us out with throwing the ball around. We talked a little bit about that today. So, I think he's excited to play the position. I think he knows what it's all about, and he's been a leader thus far. And I look forward to, watching him play. And I think you guys and the fans are going to really enjoy. He's an old school Leominster football player. He's a tough kid. He's going to stick his nose in there, and he's going to want to dive for first downs and run for touchdowns and make plays on defense. So we're going to have to try to figure all that out and try to reel him back a little. But that's the type of football player he is. And
I always appreciate the passion that is a football player like that. And when I look at the kind of the landscape of what I remember when we sat here last year at this time, just before week 1, and we're preparing going into that week, I remember you said to me, this team's going to look a little different maybe than the teams that we have in the past. The style is going to be a little different. We're going to modify, and that's part of being a coach at the high school level. You can't recruit. You can't recruit to your system. You can't bring somebody else in. Oh, I'm a drop back passer. I'm a this style offense. I'm a this style defense. I'm going to get these specific players. You can't do it. You've got to modify to the team you have. As you look at this year's team, and obviously with a more mobile quarterback, maybe a little bit different, speedier quarterback, what do you see as the landscape of your football team?
We definitely want to establish the run. I think we ran the ball pretty well last year at times, and JC is definitely a better runner than Pat, but Pat was definitely a better thrower than JC. So, I think people can figure that out. I mean, obviously, there's going to be times when if we're running the ball a lot, teams are just going to force us to pass. So, we're not going to be afraid to do that either. But I think we'll see a little bit of the same stuff. But I think, we get some good talented backs and fullbacks and a good tight end. So, we're going to run our offense, but it's going to be a little different, obviously. But we'll put some different types of things we haven't done in the past. I think you'll see, in the games to come.
One of the things that obviously we've established in talking about your camp process is there is more than one player that will be out on the field. So JC won't be by himself being asked to carry this entire deal. He's going to be, backed up, if you will, in different formations by an experienced fullback in Connor Marchand, experienced tailbacks in other positions like Adam Couch and others. that's a good thing and got to be a comfortable feeling for somebody who not only is a leader, but also wants to help and get his other players around him involved.
Yeah, I mean, we have Justice Reynolds, Beauchamp Dixon, Miles, Bowers. We got Brian Cordero, who moved in from Burncoat as a fullback. He's a pretty big kid. He's a good player. He's got a lot of heart. We got the Philbin twins that moved to line. I mean, they just relinquished their eligible numbers and didn't even think twice about it. I mean, they want the team to win, and Anthony Tossi and Zach Calladay and Conlon, those guys that are up front that are going to help us. On the offensive line, and other guys that we're going to shuffle in and out. But we got a pretty close group, and I think those guys are ready to go. It's just a matter of learning because they haven't been on, the offensive line, and we're just going to have to work, and a lot of guys are going to be going both ways. So, it's going to be like every team in the league. I mean, nobody has a lot of depth, so we're really going to have to be in good condition.
Let's talk a little bit about what that change would entail. If you're somebody who's used to playing, say, a tight end position, and you ask them to move inside, how much distinctly different is that job? Because a lot of responsibility in tight end is blocking.
Well, I mean, if you're a football player like they are, and you're selfless, and you're a team player, and you want to win, it's not a difficult transition at all. I mean, those two love to hit. And like Coach Murphy would say, who's fighting for the bottom bunk in the family with the Philbins. So, and they're playing defensive end and linebackers. So those kids are good kids. And, that's what I want all of our team. You're going to be asked to play outside linebacker than corner, or rather than a receiver, running back, or vice versa. So, and play safety and move things around. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. And I think the team that can do that best will be successful. But the transition from different positions, it's a little more different because it's a different scene in there. You're grinding it, in the trenches, and obviously you're going to have some guys on your head that if they're good, there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. You got to really deal with that, and I think that's why both of those guys are there, because they have that internal fire that's going to be able to help them emerge to a different player and take it to a next level if they do face someone that's really good.
Sit next to both of them today. Wouldn't want to be standing across from them, so it was fine to stand next to them in that sense. As you switch over to the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, I know Coach Murphy has been working with this unit, and I know especially in this week one, protecting the run, stopping things up front, being able to keep things inside, and or getting out to the edge and closing those edges off to not allow teams to get out into open space was something that he was concerned about last year, tried to make some adjustments along the way, and certainly something he wants to fix going into this year. How has that gone in the training process, and what are we looking to do defensively maybe to make those adjustments?
Well, we're a little older. I mean, that first game last year, we watched the film the other day a couple times, and our defense played pretty well. I mean, we had a fumble for a touchdown they got off of us, marginal penalty in the end zone on a pass interference on 4th down, and they scored. So no question about it, Marlboro is a good running team. They've done well. So, stopping the veer and the veer option, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to stop. I think our linebackers are a little better this year, but they're going to have to go through their reads, and we got to get some push up front and just start mixing it up and getting it done.
As we continue to look at kind of the landscape, if you will, I know one of the things that you are always concerned with is special teams. Sometimes you need something special, and special teams tends to be the place where you go there. I know you're returning an experienced kicker, some other guys along the way. It's a way to get other people involved, maybe that aren't in those starting positions. Talk to me about special teams. What are you seeing in those aspects of the game?
Well, we flew in Frank Novak from Michigan. He actually
doesn't hurt.
He actually did come down and sit down with Coach Meza, Mario Meza, with our special teams. So, we're really, we always put some time into that. I think we're going to spend more time on special teams. I think it's very important to take the Bill Belichick approach that it is a third of the game, and we really need to focus on that and, try to get some scores, some block punts, some field position things. I think our kicking game is going to be good from kickoff. We get Pablo Rodriguez and Anthony Larson. I mean, they're kicking the ball down to the 10, the 5-yard line today, both of them. So working on pooch kicking, onside kicks. So, we really taken it to the next level as far as the importance of it, and we got to work on it more and more. I think in high school football, I always say this: you're trying to do everything, and sometimes the thing that lacks behind is your special teams, because you're trying to play offense and defense, and it's after school, and the kids got to go home and homework and all that. So, you're right, but I think we got some kids that are special team players that are going to be pretty good for us.
Let's take a look at that 2018 schedule and what will that slate be. And here it goes. Starting on the road at Marlboro, and then it changed from last year's schedule. Remember, the 2018 schedule is supposed to be a composite flip from last year with home and road games. Leominster opened up with a lot of home games last year, so this year slated to play a lot of road games at the beginning of the year. At Marlboro, then Westfield home game, and then at St. John's, at Shrewsbury, at Doherty through week 5, and then closing out that regular season 8 weeks. Weeks 6, 7, and 8 with Wachusett, Shepherd Hill, and Algonquin from there. And that's the first 8 weeks of the season, Coach. I mean, it's murderer's row. It always is. For one reason or another, you're changing constantly the forms that you're seeing in teams. And Westfield, a new team into the bunch, and I know you were very appreciative. They agreed. You had a home-and-home deal. They agreed to flip that this year, so you could have a home game this year in week 2, and then you'll travel to Westfield next year.
Right, and I think I just want to make a point in the schedule. One thing that they've never seen there ever before in the history of Leominster football is playing St. John's on Friday night.
Yes.
It's their first night of their lights at their stadium. So those of you that are looking at the schedule, Friday night St. John's, we're going to Shrewsbury. That's a Saturday game.
Yes.
That is their homecoming. And then October 20th is also a Saturday game. That is our homecoming with all of our teams playing that day. But as far as the Westfield game goes, they really, we talked about it earlier. They got another athletic director.
Yep.
And we had, basically said, look, can we really get this game at home so we don't have 5 away games? They agreed graciously, and they're going to come out for game 2. So, yes, the schedule's the same as last year, except for Westfield, week 2, which is, by the way, in Division 3 in Western Mass, so they're in the same division as us.
And thankfully, we're not in the same playoff bracket as we were formerly in hoops. As my MIAA play, I got to get one swing at him every now and again. All right, let's see around the region this week 1 of action. Other games that are going on out there, we'll be keeping an eye on. That Westfield team we were just talking about, they travel to Ludlow out in Western Mass. Doherty travels to Wachusett in week 1 of action. Shrewsbury's at Shepherd Hill. And then you have Catholic Memorial traveling to St. John's. And then Fitchburg is over at St. Bernard's, where, for everyone's hope, lights are functioning at St. Bernard's this year as well. So those are the 5 games we'll be keeping an eye on around the region as well. A lot of great teams in there, Coach, that we'll get to see throughout the year as well, and some exciting matchups across the region as well.
I'm going to predict, I think this year there's more parity, particularly in our league, than I've seen in a long time. I think, and in other leagues. I think just the way the scope of football has gone, I mean, I think you'll see a couple dominant teams, but I really think you're going to see a lot of good games, particularly in our league. With all the teams, Shrewsbury, Wachusett, St. John's, us, Algonquin, Shepherd Hill, Doherty. So, I mean, there's going to be some great matchups. So I'll be interested to see how those other games go. But, like we just talked about, special teams is going to play a huge role in these games.
Week 1 of action. It's Leominster and Marlboro at Kelleher Field is the site. That's Friday night, the 7th of September, to open up the year. Leominster and Marlboro. Coach, a quick word on this. Obviously, week 1, you know yourself. You don't know much about your opponent other than what you've known in years past. They'll be big. They'll be physical. They'll want to run the football. That about cover Marlboro?
Yeah, no, they're going to run that veer option, the old, the old Huck Hannigan veer option, and Mahoney does a great job coaching those kids. They'll play their 3-5 linebackers coming every which way but loose with their DBs, and they'll change it up, and they play good hard-nosed football. They read the ball. They run well to the ball. Their offense, they have big plays. They run sideline to sideline or right at you. They'll try to gash you up the middle, and then they'll go up top. I mean, that's what they did to us last year. So we got to be ready for all of those things and just try to execute and not have the turnovers this year. And I think it will be a better game. Lots of places to participate in this one. We've got television and radio coverage for you as in years past. K-Zone AM 1280 and 105.3 FM and streaming live at WPKZ.net on the radio
video side, they'll have Facebook Live there beginning at 20 minutes past 6 before a 6:30 countdown to kickoff. Leominster TV will be with us as well, Channel 32 and Channel 9 for your action there, Verizon or Comcast dependent. And then replays will be available all week and weekend via those channels as well as YouTube as well. And they will have Facebook Live for play-by-play beginning at 7 o'clock as well. So all sorts of places, and the most important thing is gathering up the family and going down to Kelleher Field and being there and being a part of it in person.
Yeah, that's a great field. I mean, I played many games on there, playing for the Shamrocks back in the day, and it's a nice field. It's a beautiful complex, and you know, it's right down the road. I mean, it's a very similar town to our city. I mean, it's a little microcosm of Leominster, same type of football lore, I'll say, and they're going to be tough. And it's always been a great rivalry over the years, back to when I played. So we really look forward to going down there, and it's going to be a big challenge for us.
Should be a great week of action in week one. One last promo: 20 for 20 has begun, and you have seen the first couple. Here's this week's 20 for 20 games. We will flash back to 2015. Leominster is at Wachusett. That's September the 4th and 20 for 20. And then on September the 6th, we flash back to 2014 for Leominster versus Fitchburg, the Central Mass Championship game. 20 games for 20 years as Leominster TV celebrates its 20 years of coverage of Leominster High School football as well this season. A very busy week one of action, and we're happy to have you being a part of it. Coach, we'll get to a whole lot more detail as we continue throughout the year. Thank you so much for being with us. Week two of the Coach's Corner coming up as well. For Leominster High School head coach Dave Palazzi, our producer Kate Robbins, I am Todd Robbins saying thank you so very much for joining us. And until next week, so long, everybody.